The world continues to mourn the passing of Nelson Mandela. A city mining conference warned to not believe the Ring of Fire hype. And some Santa's helpers undertake a major gift wrapping effort.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The grieving continued throughout South Africa today following the death of Nelson Mandela.
Mandela died peacefully yesterday at the age of 95 after a lengthy illness. Now a flood of tributes are pouring in from around the world. Nala Ayed has the story.
Mourning without Madiba. And though they knew it would eventually come, hard to hold in the sorrow. They of all creeds, the core of the many around the world, waking up to feelings of profound loss today. It was, after all, their Tata, our father, who'd passed on. At a service of thanks, fellow Nobel Peace Prize winner Desmond Tutu tried to express what one man meant to an entire nation.
He cared. He really cared. What's going to happen to us now that our father has died?
May I now invite you all to stand and observe a minute of silence in tribute to the memory of President Mandela.
In many places, the grief met by moments of silence, even at the New York Stock Exchange, and among children who never knew Nelson Mandela. Since the moment he died, a constant cascade of condolences and praise has come from world leaders, past and present, often from both sides to many conflicts, a testament to his broad appeal.
When I heard it,
each reliving their own memories of Mandela. The Queen visited the spot where he delivered a speech to Parliament in 1996.
We stand here today.
Others listened as his voice rang out, as though he were still with us, and among fellow African leaders attending a summit in Paris today.
We will all miss the most cherished of Africa's sons and a true African hero.
Those long inspired by Mandela as unifier, Mandela as freedom fighter, also compelled to have their say today, to share their anguish.
If it wasn't for him and all the other freedom fighters, I wouldn't be here. He's the most wonderful, inspiring person, most inspiring leader ever, and I'm just so proud to be South African today. He's wonderful.
Even from afar, hard not to feel Mandela's absence. But hardest, perhaps, is speaking of him in the past. Nala Ayed, CBC News, London.
We'll have more on the death of Nelson Mandela later in the news hour.
A mining industry watchdog says politicians and companies need to tone down their rhetoric over the economic impact of the Ring of Fire. Studies, including a local one, talk of the tens of thousands of jobs that will be created and billions of dollars in revenues generated. But as Dennis Ward reports, Mining Watch Canada says, don't believe the hype.
Peggy Smith says she's a little overwhelmed by all that's come out of a two-day forum on sustainable mining. Tackling issues like infrastructure, royalties, education, and the environment has been a lot to take in.
It seemed to us that there's a lot of different perspectives out there, and we wanted to try and be what we call an honest broker and bring those people together and see if we can come to some kind of consensus.
Those taking part in this conference are coming up with recommendations for government. It's an effort to improve the way development is done in the North. Mining Watch Canada first involved itself in the Ring of Fire when claims were being staked for a transportation route. The industry watchdog didn't feel the claims were for mining purposes and worried they would help jump the gun on policy development with a focus on only one route option.
That's precipitated the conflict that we see now. That said, I don't think that's necessarily the showstopper it's being portrayed as either, because as pointed out in a recent editorial, it could probably buy out KWG and all their mineral claims for a fraction of the cost of the corridor, and we could, move on.
Mining Watch Canada says if it had one recommendation to the public over the proposed Ring of Fire development, it would be to not believe the hype.
Take a deep breath. This may come in the future, but don't stake your plans over the next 5-10 years on this coming to pass and buying a great big new house on the chances that the economy of the region is going to be completely lifted by this. And even if it does go ahead, I think we need to be modest in our expectations about what it will do.
Mining Watch says there is a real policy vacuum in Ontario when it comes to mining, and especially the Ring of Fire. Ramsey Hart feels forums like this are a worthy contribution to the dialogue. Even if he's skeptical, it will lead to real change. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
And despite some skepticism regarding whether the Ring of Fire will actually go ahead, Premier Kathleen Wynne says she's not giving up. Wynne met with Prime Minister Stephen Harper yesterday. She's trying to get the federal government to help fund the infrastructure in and out of the far north. Wynne wrote a letter to Harper last month asking for matching funds for more than $2 billion of infrastructure projects. No firm commitments were made during what the Premier calls a good meeting. But Wynne says the federal government is open to consider joining the Ring of Fire Development Corporation, a mechanism that will be used to get the infrastructure built.
This is exactly the time when it's an opportunity to form the Development Corporation together. So I said to the Prime Minister that there's lots of opportunity right now, and so it's absolutely appropriate that Minister Gravel would meet with Minister Rickford and take that discussion of what's this going to look like, how is it going to work, take that to the next level.
The Premier's comments came today during a meeting with Northern leaders in Timmins. Michael Gravel and Greg Rickford are expected to sit down and talk about the Development Corporation in the near future.
December 6th is a day of national remembrance and action on violence against women. A ceremony was held at Lakehead University honoring the 14 women killed in the Montreal massacre, while also bringing awareness to the issue. Cheryl Holmes was there.
Richard Coury says the Montreal massacre that happened on December 6, 1989 is something that stayed with him his whole life.
Being an engineer, studying engineering in Quebec, there was a memorial to this tragedy outside the engineering building where I studied, and it's still there. And I would see it, it was right outside the building, so I would see it every day going to class.
Coury was 10 years old, living in Quebec City, when 14 women going to school at École Polytechnique were killed by a man who blamed feminists for ruining his life. Coury says at that time he couldn't understand or make sense of what happened, but the event was something that cast a shadow over Quebec. It's something they've never forgotten and something the province has used to move forward.
The idea that someone could just kill out of anger and hatred, could just walk into a school and kill 14 people was not something that just hit me at one point, something that it took me a long time to figure out.
Community members read the biographies of the 14 women who were killed before lighting a candle in their honor.
I want people to remember who they were, the potential that they held, and I also incorporated with having the 14 empty seats as a reminder.
Now, 24 years later, December 6th is a day of remembrance and action on violence against women. Representatives from various community organizations, students, and teachers spoke about what actions people can take each day to prevent violence against women, both on and off campus.
This is a space for remembrance and wanted people to reflect on how the university should be a safe space. It is a safe space, but there are times and places that it is not.
The United Nations says 70% of women worldwide still experience some level of violence. The ceremony commemorated one of the most horrific acts of violence against women in Canadian history. Its goal is to bring awareness to the issue and someday end the problem. Cheryl Holmes, TBT News.
More details have been released regarding a string of camp break-ins last week in the Boreal Road and Highway 527 areas. The break-ins all occurred between November 22nd and December 2nd and involved camps at Max, DeCourcy, Pete's, and Escape Lakes, and off the Boreal Road at Marks Hoof and Batwing Lakes. Thunder Bay OPP say it appears that more than $50,000 worth of items were taken in the break-ins. 17 firearms were among the items stolen. Police are again asking anyone with information on the thefts to contact the OPP or Crime Stoppers.
Over the past 100 years, Thunder Bay's Whalen Building has become a big part of the city's history. When the structure was originally built, James Whalen had a goal of making it the cornerstone of commerce in his Chicago of the North. Today marked the 100th anniversary of that city landmark. The ornate building was constructed in 1913 at a cost of $475,000. James Whalen, who originally built and owned the structure, went bankrupt during the Great Depression, and the building was sold to the city of Port Arthur. Chairman of the Thunder Bay Heritage Advisory Committee, Andrew Cotter, says preserving the building is a way of keeping the community's rich history alive.
this is a very good investment. It's almost like a living museum, if you would like to call it that, of what was happening around that time. So, as the chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee, we have 26 designated buildings, and we're trying to preserve those buildings to basically tell the story of the past and promote our future.
You know, the businesses that are within this building are the tenants. I mean, in many cases, they're unique in that they value being in a heritage building. They enjoy showing their clients what this building has to offer, and they feel that this space is Class A and prestigious.
The 65,000 square foot Wayland building is set to undergo some repairs and updates in the near future. On the agenda is a $3 million interior renovation on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors.
The Thunder Bay Community Foundation has once again handed out its annual grants. This year, more than 40 charities will benefit. It's the 42nd annual event. All money donated from local citizens will in turn be given to nonprofit groups and charities throughout the city. In total, the Community Foundation has given out more than $250,000 in grants to organizations such as the Boys and Girls Club and the Red Cross.
Big difference to these organizations. They're local, not-for-profit organizations, and for example, they may be receiving $5,000 for a computer that they wouldn't otherwise be able to buy, or to initiate a program within their organization that they wouldn't necessarily be able to do if they didn't get this grant from the Thunder Bay Community Foundation.
The grants range in size from $600,000 to $25,000.
The Canadian Forces, RCMP, countrywide police forces, and the Canadian Toy Association are working together for another Toys for the North drive. The effort tries to ensure Santa can visit the communities in remote locations. Today, local groups involved gathered to get the toys ready for delivery. Mike Albanese has the story.
The 4th annual Toys for the North drive has gathered up a bundle of toys and necessities from various Canadian organizations to bring to remote communities. A large Hercules plane brings the items to various locations in Canada, such as Thunder Bay, and they're then flown to this year's locations, which are in Manitoba, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Northern Ontario.
Ultimately, it's all about putting smiles on people's faces, not just kids, but families as well. A lot of the far northern communities across Canada, they don't have access to stores and brand new toys like the rest of us do. So it's really important for the RCMP and all the partners the Canadian Forces to make sure that because of the way we're situated right across the country, that we have the logistical capability of bringing these toys across.
The toys are supplied by the Canadian Toy Association, Thompson Terminals provides warehousing, Hallmark Canada provides wrapping paper, and Kimberly-Clark provides things such as diapers and baby wipes for the families that wouldn't otherwise receive them. The team effort put together by these companies and police forces across Canada is massive and builds great relationships.
Not only does it foster great relationships between police and communities, but it also fosters really good partnerships with private industry as well as other police services. Like here in Thunder Bay, we have Anishinaabe Police Service. We also partner with the OPP as well as various municipal services across the country.
Among those involved are the Anishinaabe Police Service. On a regular day, they serve 34 communities throughout the north, some who are accessible through highways and some only by plane. This year, they are excited to be able to give gifts to all the communities they serve.
We're happy to be involved in the coordinated effort to have these donated toys delivered to children in northern communities that we serve. We have 34 communities that we serve, and we're going to be able to send packages to each and every one of them.
Media Relations Sergeant Jackie George says the best part about the effort is the smiles and cheer brought to the youth and families when the planes touch down with the gifts and goodies.
I believe what the kids are going to be most excited to see is that plane arrive and see these packages come off the plane. And, there will be frontline service workers helping to deliver the toys. Members of the local politicians, the chiefs and council will be on hand, and along with our police officers.
This year, over 7,000 toys worth $110,000 will be given to communities in the 3 locations, promising a brighter Christmas for everyone. Mike Albanese, TBT News.